Welcome to the Manifesting Health Series. I'm Curry Boardline, your host for this discussion. The Manifesting Health Series provides engaging interviews with experts in men's health. Today, we're excited to have Michael Ward join us for Men's Wellness Blueprint, Stay Ahead of the Game. Michael is a former oil field worker and critical care nurse and nurse practitioner in cardiovascular and medical ICUs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He's a member and immediate past president of the American Association for Men in Nursing. Michael is currently the founder and CEO of Next Level TRT and founder and chairman of the Diversity Alliance Scholarship Program. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Excellent.
It's nice to be a part of something like this. Really cool.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So in our first couple of minutes, can you give us a little bit of a background of what got you into the space of men's health as your focus?
So it's always been kind of my wheelhouse. And so broadly, I'm very into health and fitness myself. I am a competitive bodybuilder. Working in the ICU for so long, my gosh, I feel like I've been in the ICU almost 20 years now. And I feel what I've noticed over that time is men play a very passive role in their own health, and I'm probably sure that you've seen this. Patients will come in and, you do like this health assessment on men, and usually it's kind of like this. So what medications do you take? Honey, what medications? That kind of thing, right? There's just such a high level of self-reliance in men, and they don't really typically care very much about going to the doctor or just keeping up with their health. I mean, statistically, we're terrible at it. We're stubborn, and so I think that always kind of fascinated me. And being a man myself and seeing men decline in their later years, the last 3 decades really are really rough, for most men. And that really just really interested me, and it felt like the right lane to be in. And so I kind of just slowly just kind of ended up in that space, and so I enjoy it. And I see patients every day, male patients. And, it's been really helpful seeing that, the back end whenever men do terrible, because when people come to me, I can really get them like on a different track, and it's a lot more fun than the ICU, So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that background. You hit on some very important topics about how men typically can be quite passive on their own care, and yet have the worst outcomes in many other populations. So as we segue in to this next portion, I want you to spend a little time talking about those very items. Give us some backgrounds and facts and where we are currently in the men's health space.
Okay, well, so as I mentioned, guys are, really self-reliant. Men and women are disproportionately proactive in health seeking and health maintenance behaviors, right? And this is typically seen as and there's a lot of studies that show this kind of relates back to male gender norms and specifically like ideas of traditional masculinity, and so, the University of Washington, I think February 7th and 8th, they're holding their 10th annual like men's health summit. And they're going to be talking about prostate cancer, prostate screenings, and testosterone, which is great. But men are more than just testosterone and prostates, I mean, we have substantial more risk with heart disease, hypertension, obesity, depression, anxiety, even suicide, liver disease from alcoholism or alcohol abuse. And then there is erectile dysfunction. There is, hormonal dysregulation and stuff like that. But we by far, I mean, we see the whole gamut that the general population sees, but we just experience it more. And I think, again, a lot of that has to do with just poor health seeking behaviors, And so I like to circle back when I see my own patients at my clinic. I usually do a very deep dive, even though they come here for a very specific thing to see me. I like to see kind of what's going on under the hood, you know. And most men that I see, they either don't have a primary care provider or they don't go see a primary care provider enough, you know. And so whenever they come in, I say, so, do you have any past medical history? And usually it's like, oh no, I'm good. I don't take any medications, never any surgeries, But then I look at their blood pressure and it's like 190s over, 100s. I'm looking at their labs, their cholesterol's through the roof. Like their blood sugar's crazy, like it's wild. And so, we really got to do a better job and we don't know how to do it exactly yet, how to bring more men into the fold and take more responsibility for their own health, because man, we need them. We need these guys, and I always say, hey, listen, if for nothing else, do it for your wife or do it for your kids or do it for your grandkids. It's super important. And so, there, like I said, there's all the things, that both men and women, we pretty much experience a lot of the same things, especially with chronic disease. But men just experience it far more.
So I'm so glad. Thank you, Michael, for sharing that. I'm so glad you mentioned there's a couple of things that really I gravitated to is the understanding that men are way more than just prostate and testosterone. It's very important to realize that we're multifaceted in so many ways. So I'm very glad you pointed that out. But also the understanding that there's an ongoing stigma and gap associated with truly embracing preventative and care in general in a consistent manner for men. And it happens, we see it all the time about how often men see, like you said, men don't even very commonly know who their primary care is. So it's very difficult to get people into a space of owning their care when they don't even know who is responsible for their care. When it comes down to it, we are responsible for our own care. And so it's very important. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So I want to spend a little bit more time about what you said about prostate and TRT, because I know one of your successes is being able to meet people in that nutritional and TRT space with the testosterone replacement therapy, which has become growingly more popular in a way that's very meaningful, because there has to be a careful balance in just, hey, here's an injection or a replacement or whatever it might be, versus truly, is there a need, and so forth. So it's that comprehensive approach of what your needs are. Can you talk a little bit more about what you do in your clinic? Because I know there's a lot of focus on TRT, but what else do you do in your clinic to incorporate many other parts of that preventative care space?
Well, I think it definitely goes back from day one. When somebody comes in, they come in for just initial consultation, and it's usually just kind of information gathering. But during that time, it's when we can really focus on what their health history is. And if they don't have any health history, we talk about symptoms that they've been experiencing. For testosterone, there's such, for the longest time, there was a very strong stigma associated with testosterone, and being prescribed testosterone was very difficult. If you felt like you had symptoms of low testosterone, many primary care providers would not want to test that, because there were about 3 or 4 studies over the about 10 years ago, roughly, that they didn't test to see if there was heart risk associated with testosterone. But there was just little findings, little incidental things that maybe suggested that maybe testosterone could cause increased coronary risk. And so it wasn't until I think 2018 that there was a large double-blind placebo-controlled trial which involved about 6,000 people, and it was called the TRAVERSE trial. And they tested as a primary endpoint cardiovascular risk, and then secondary endpoints was prostate safety. And then there were several tertiary findings. And I think that what was really cool to see is that every person that was enrolled in the study, they had to actually have cardiovascular disease of some sort or an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And so at the end, and by the way, they blinded, all these folks. Like there was, I think, 3,000 on placebo and 3,000 on testosterone. And the ones that actually were on and this is a 5-year study, the ones that were actually on testosterone did better than the people who weren't on testosterone, and so this is kind of the landmark study we had been waiting for. And since then, several other studies have come out. And so I believe that the word is getting out, like testosterone is not the big bad wolf that we thought it may be in the past. And I think that's why there's such a growing trend of men who are, being prescribed testosterone, along with the fact that, in June 2011, every day, 10,000 people turn 65. So we have a very large portion of people, the baby boomers, who are moving into this area of life that, our testosterone starts to decline after 40, Well, I say that I see younger and younger people coming in with crazy, let me back up. Testosterone ranges 265 up to about 1,000. Right. So it's a huge parameter, huge gap. Right. And it's not a one size fits all, but very few people will be placed on testosterone if they're not in the normal range. And so you have to be completely debilitated, basically, and I see younger and younger men come in their 30s, even their early 30s, with a very low testosterone. I had somebody came in the other day, their testosterone was 172 and they were 30 years old. And, I'm like, what is going on? And they're gonadotropins, those things that tell us if, like chemical messengers that tell the body to make more testosterone or to pump the brakes on the testosterone. It was normal. Like it should have been high, it's just becoming more prevalent. And there's all kinds of endocrine disruption and hormonal dysregulation with the foods that we eat and the environment that we're surrounded by, the plastics we drink from, all those things contribute. Obesity rates, sedentary lifestyles, all those things can contribute. And so, but whenever you can optimize somebody's testosterone, I'm not talking blasting testosterone, but just get them in the normal range, or sometimes just a little, normal upper levels, it changes everything. It changes everything. I have men that have been on testosterone, that have been placed on antidepressants. Instead of checking their testosterone levels, they'll put them on antidepressants, and they invariably they don't work. They come to me and they say, I've been on this antidepressant for a year. I still feel depressed. We've changed me a couple times. This is a common story. And then we check their testosterone levels. Their testosterone levels are in the dirt. We optimize our testosterone levels. It's absolutely incredible the changes that take place. There's definitely a psychological and emotional component to low testosterone. So I'm not saying it's a fix all, but it certainly helps a lot of things. And if I can bring them in for that, then I can capture them and we can look at all these other things. Okay, your cholesterol is crazy high, man. We gotta look at that. And so we'll do heart scores, like a 10-year risk for MI. Sometimes I order coronary calcium scans to see if there's any calcified plaque around the coronary arteries. I mean, we take a deep dive because this may be the only time that this guy goes to see somebody, And so while I have him, I want to fix them as much as we can, collaboratively. I'm not in the space where I tell you what to do, but I certainly make strong suggestions.
But
do it for your kids, do it from your family.
Certainly, and I'm glad that there's a mechanism to potentially bring people in to you, as a TRT sort of scan, but it ends up being a lot more comprehensive from a preventative approach.
That's the goal.
So that brings into this next question: is the preventative space? So many people. Say for instance, you come into the clinic and to your clinic or other clinics, and the immediate thought is, well, it's my testosterone, but the testosterone levels are normal. What other preventative measures do you do for your patients, or do you recommend for patients to stay? We have the normal, see your primary care and check your blood pressure, but what other preventative tools or mechanisms do we have in place to optimize men's health?
Well, diet and lifestyle. I mean, I tell people this all the time. There's not a magic bullet to fix everything, but if there was a secret to being healthy, it's just good old fashioned diet and exercise. And if you can add on top of that, stretching. That's like the fountain of youth. As you get older, being flexible and just being able to move around without cracking and creaking, or like, when you've been down, it's amazing. It's amazing. And so, we kind of focus on that, and one thing is just getting somebody into the gym. A lot of people, they'll give it a shot. You look on January 1st and the gyms are full of people, right? And I think people just start too hard, too heavy, too fast, and I think what you need to do is you need to start off slow. Everybody has, 24 to 48 hours a week that they're off work, right? And so at most people. And so I always say, just start slow, just commit to 2 days a week or 3, because if you say, okay, I'm going to work out every day, and they work out like 5 or 6 days, it's not sustainable. They're going from nothing to 5 or 6 days a week. They're sore, they're exhausted, and they're going to quit. So I try to, turn them on to the idea of working out or exercise. Just go 30 minutes, 2 days a week or 3 days a week. Don't overdo it. Just get in the habit of doing something. And then one day you'll be so ingrained in your life that the days that you don't go to the gym, you're going to feel awful, right? And it's then when you can really dial up the intensity and brutalize yourself if you want to, because you're already locked in, And so at that point, it's all, it gets better. It gets better and easier. And then it just opens up because you start seeing physical changes and it really motivates you and you get excited. And then you start doing, lots of great things. It's really incredible the domino effect that can happen when you just start by taking it slow. But a lot of these people don't have a clue. Nobody's ever talked to them about working out or exercising and their importance of, diet and nutrition, and we'll go through, there's a great resource called the TDEE calculator. It's a total daily energy expenditure calculator. And you can find it online. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to create an account. It's just tdeecalculator.net. And you just put in your information and it'll tell you exactly what your BMR is, what your maintenance calories are, what you need to stay under in order to lose weight over time. And then it'll even tell you what your macros are based on 3 different macro splits, like a low carb, moderate carb, and a high carb. And then you can just follow that and then track your meals. And, it's not rocket science, but it is something that's different. And so creating the habit is probably the most difficult thing for somebody.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. And certainly glad you mentioned the diet and exercise pieces, because that as a society in general, male, female, and all, specifically with men, the lack of physical activity, consistent physical activity, along with eating appropriately, certainly is a huge barrier to overall success. And then recently, with the latest study that came out with the use of alcohol, what Surgeon General has put in place with the use of excessive, alcohol consumption can also play into, and other risk behaviors. So we're not just talking about one as alcohol, but other things as well, tobacco use and so forth, which in this Manifesting Health series, we're going to talk about some of the risk behaviors within the series. So we're really excited about that. So stay tuned. But, this has been very helpful, Michael, and I really appreciate your time and your expertise. As we wrap up, what is a quick little takeaway that you want to share with everybody?
Well, I think I really think it's important just getting men to just go and get help, that just and maybe help isn't the best word, because we don't typically feel like we need help. You know what I mean? But I think taking responsibility for your own health, maybe if it's not for you, maybe it's for your wife or your spouse or your kids or your grandkids, or your brother, your family, everybody. We don't realize how important we play, what the important role that we play in the lives of those who love us, and we're so wrapped up in all the things that we have going on in our life. And it's really easy to kind of disregard our health because we have so many obligations, so many responsibilities. But part of that is taking self-responsibility and really just making sure that we're taking the best care of ourselves that we can. And so, just seeking out just a provider, seeing, once a year, annual checkups, that's a great way to start, as far as just taking account of what's going on in your own body. We didn't even touch on mental health, which is super duper important, man. I mean, Suicide is like the top, I think the World Health Organization said that suicide is like the 4th leading cause of death around the world. and men specifically have higher rates of suicide because we hold everything in and we just try to deal with it, and we don't want to talk to anybody, and then it ends up being disastrous.
Right.
I mean, just getting in and finding someone who you can connect with and that you enjoy seeing, and it doesn't feel more, I love when people come and see me, and in the way that my practice works, I spend about 30 to 45 minutes with each patient every time I see a patient. So I spend a really long time. Usually the patient's like, all right, man, I got to get out of here, but I always want to make sure they feel heard and that we're talking about everything they want to talk about. So find somebody that you can really connect with and really just take stock and try to do the best you can, to take care of yourself, because it's important. Nobody can do you better than you, but you really got to take care of yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate that message, and very important message. And so I hope everyone takes heed to this as we wrap up. So thank you again for attending today. I'm glad that you are here with us to share your expertise. I appreciate it, Michael. And thank you all for listening in, and be on the lookout for our next series. Thank you so much.